Ladies
Let's
and
go for it.
gentlemen, this is Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, and we have a very special interview and a special guest tonight, Gene Beards. You know him as Maverickstar or Mavstar from the Mavstar Observatory. Now, Maverickstar Reloaded has been around for years, and in the last few years has been concentrating on this pole shift that academia has been well aware of for decades, but we have just realized in the mainstream media that the mainstream media now is pushing an effort to push disinformation about the shifting magnetic poles. And this comes from simple research that we've done over the last 10 days, where the mainstream headlines are now claiming that the pole is rapidly shifting faster than ever before, which we know about. Scientists know. Gene and I know. Many other scientists know that it's now accelerating. But the headlines say that geologists don't know why, which is clearly disinformation, because all of the academic papers on pole shift for the last 2 decades explain that the pole's shifting and it's accelerating. Now, I want to welcome you to the show. It is an absolute honor to have the legend, Maverickstar Reloaded, Gene Beards on the show. Gene, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
So for our listeners, they're all really interested in the work you're doing over there. Tell them where you're at, where you're from. Where is your amazing apartment at that is completely, has a light show in there? So give us a little background on what you're doing.
Okay, so as you know, you've been following me for about 5 years and been a keen supporter, which I'm really pleased about and very grateful. So what have we been doing? Well, about 7 years ago, we started talking a lot about the magnetic pole shift. To me, it seemed that after nothing really happened at 2012 with the Mayan calendar, that's really what got me into all this. I started to look for actual things that could have been something that the Mayans was talking about. And I thought, what is there that is actually big that's happening? And I came across, the magnetic pole reversing at this current time, or at least it was migrating from its original point where it used to be in Canada. As you know, since the 1800s, it wandered around quite a little bit in that vicinity of Canada, but since 1905, it really started to take an easterly direction and, migrate over 1,500 miles to this present day. And, like I say, we used to talk about it a lot on the Maverickstar Reloaded channel. And we thought it'd be a great idea to do a little bit more than just talk and build the equipment that would actually track it. And 2 years to develop it, a lot of scratching my head, because obviously at that point I was learning myself C++ programming. And, with the crowdfunding, we managed to get the money together. I taught myself some programming, and it took 2 years to develop. And we built the Climatic system, which monitors the magnetic pole migration every 3 seconds. And for the last 18 months, it's done a fantastic job. And you're probably aware, recently, within the last 4 months, I came out and told people that we was getting some high readings from the TriMag, which was an indication that something else was happening. And, they've only just came out, I believe, the first announcement that they made, these mainstream organisations such as NOAA, was on the 9th of January this year, stating that, that there has been a swift uptick in the migration of the magnetic pole. And they are going to be making an announcement, I think, at the end of this month, if they can get the government back online, to let us know what it is that they're doing.
Well, that's an excellent introduction, Mav. Let me put in my 2 cents. I think what's happened, and you may agree with me, is that in the last 4 months or so, the magnetic pole has accelerated so much that it actually passed the north rotational pole. And you can see here on your last data point that it's sitting right there at the rotational pole. If it were to go on the other side of it, as opposed to where it's been, let's say it's east of it for the last 100 years, if it goes west of that rotational pole, it will screw up all the navigation because it's literally going to flip it completely to the wrong direction. So I think that the pole is moving so quickly, and that we've now waited 4 years for an official update, that the pole is going to be way towards Siberia at this point, that they officially put there. Now, you and I both know that if you look at the magnetic anomaly map, that there are 2 poles up in the north, 2 very apparent poles.
That's right.
Where the current magnetic pole that's moving is the strongest, but the remnant magnetic pole that had been sitting in that spot in Canada for hundreds of years is still remnant. It's still there. So even though the stronger magnetic pole is shifting towards Siberia, the original magnetic signature remains above Canada. So what are your thoughts on that splitting? Because it seems to me that split, we can see it in the climate itself with the split polar vortex. The polar vortex tends to want to split now, one over Siberia, one over Canada. And I think that there is a direct relationship to what we're seeing climatically to this double northern magnetic pole signature.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the swarm data, the chart that you're talking about, shows us the intensity over Canada, being a large region, and over Siberia right now. And, you know, if we get 2 magnets, I don't know if you saw the recent upload I done on the channel, where I showed people what happens when you get 2 large magnetic intensities like we have over Canada and over Siberia. The compass points directly in between the 2. And, you know, I keep showing people this data that Swarm released. It was one of their first pictures or imagery of what they'd collected through these satellites going over and over and over the Earth, collecting the intensity of the magnetic region that these satellites was flying over. And I've said to people on my channel, you know, we're going to find out maybe if they're prepared to make the announcement at the end of this month when they come back to work, that the magnetic pole is and the pole migration is in already an advanced state of reversal. And, you know, our compasses right now are not pointing at any magnetic pole. No. It's pointing clearly in a region where there's no poles. The poles right now, there's 2 of them, and you're right, they have split over the northern hemisphere and they're split over the southern hemisphere. And I think that this is a state of advanced reversal. So I think, you know, it's not going to be like what they said at first. It was going to be thousands of years before a reversal took place. It's not. I think we're already in the advanced stages of a reversal, and they might be brave enough to just come out at the end of this month and tell us that is the case. They might tell us that at the moment there is 2 magnetic poles over the northern hemisphere, and that what our compasses and our sensors or our magnetometers in our mobile phones and other devices is pointing at is just the region in between these 2 magnetic 2 high intensity regions. So, you know, right now our compasses are not pointing at magnetic poles. They're just pointing at the intense region between 2 magnetic poles. Well, that's what we're tracking at the moment. And sorry.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Gene, in the fact that most people are near the equator or within 45 degrees of it. But if you go up above 50 degrees north, depending on where your boat is, nearest to the nearest northern magnetic anomaly, it's going to point towards that one, which is why when you get up there, instead of the compass pointing between the 2, which is giving the average, because the average magnetic field is in the middle now, which I agree with you, I concur 100%, that's giving a false reading because it is pointing to true north, right at the pole, which is not where the magnetic poles are. They're way far away from that area. And if you take a boat up there, up in the Arctic, and you're close to the Siberian magnetic anomaly, it's going to point you over to Siberia, which is nowhere near north. It's going to take you
Exactly.
like west or
No.
east. And so that's the problem they're
Yeah.
having up there
And
when you get close to those two anomalies.
yeah. And I think this is one of the reasons why there isn't many flights over the polar regions. One is probably a magnetic reason, although they do have GPS, that they can rely on. But, right now, if you look at where these intense regions of magnetic flux are, if you want to call it that, these high intensity regions, and look where they are, they're well into Russia. They've passed Siberia, the heart of these epicenters of these magnetic regions. I mean, in the Siberian one, it's well over into Russia. And, some of that intense region is going down into China now. It's actually on the border, the safe border of China. So,
Yeah,
the safe border of Russia onto China.
I'm trying to pull that data up. Here it is. Okay, so here are your
Yeah.
data points. You probably can't see them because the lag is horrendous. And guys, I want you to know
I'm
that
sorry about
Gene and I are doing this in impossible situations. He is from the UK and has terrible internet, and we're off grid here in Southwest Colorado in the middle of the wilderness. So we're doing the best we can, and this is going to be an awesome introduction to Maverickstar and the great work he's doing. So we're about midway through this podcast, and we're going to do many
So
more.
these regions now, so over the northern, sorry. Yeah. So these intense regions that, I think you've got the image up now, haven't you? Over the northern and southern hemisphere swarms data.
No, I don't have it up. I'm looking for it.
Okay. So I'll just talk about this. What our plans are now is to build 6 more magnetometers, and we're going to stick it on the the epicenters. We're going to try and get 2 people in either southern Russia. I know it's going to be hard to get 2 people in North China. But if we can get on the edges of these epicenters where these intense regions are of magnetic, high intensity regions, if we can sort of like predict where they're going to be moving south over the northern hemisphere, get 2 in China or maybe South Russia, and 2 in mid-America, perhaps Virginia, and over the other side, Los Angeles. We know that these regions are coming further south towards the equator, and if we can get these magnetometers, which will probably be finished within the next month and a half and shipped out to people, we can track these intensity regions, because we know that these are moving south. And we're going to do the same in Australia. We're going to put 2 magnetometers in Australia, mid-Australia, and we'll track that intensity region coming up towards, the equatorial region again, moving north. So we're going to expand what we're doing a little bit. Not only are we tracking that central region in between Siberia and Canada, which is where our compasses are pointing north, we're going to track the magnetic region in Canada and Siberia, and also now, which is pluming up towards mid-Australia.
Okay, Gene, what I've pulled up here, I have the data of the magnetic field here. We're looking at it's probably a year old, but what it clearly shows is that 65,000 nanotesla area is migrating up towards Australia now, the South Pole. It shows the 60,000 nanotesla region in Siberia, and it clearly shows a 60,000 or 55,000 nanotesla region in northern Canada. So for those watching right now, this is the one magnetic pole, the main one that's shifting over Siberia. And over here at Canada is the remnant field, because the magnetic pole has been here for hundreds of years, which literally magnetized the shield rocks in the subsurface. If you don't know, the Canadian shield is all volcanic. These rocks pick up magnetic field and hold on to them like they're their children. because many of these magnetic batholithic rocks in the Canadian Shield have magnetite in them. This is not a magnet mineral, it's an iron mineral that holds magnetism. You can put a magnetic field near it, like the Earth's magnetic pole, for hundreds of years, and they're going to retain a remnant magnetic pole, which is still there in Canada as the other pole quickly moves to Siberia. Now, it is the consensus among cutting edge scientists like myself and you that the moving pole, the one over Siberia, and the other South Pole, they're going to meet here somewhere that I'm circling that you can't see here near in Indonesia. So the 0 point is where both poles meet in Indonesia. Now that is opposite of a normal magnetic anomaly. If, according to the textbooks, the magnetic poles should shift on opposite sides of the planet when they're flipping. Now, in this scenario that we're living, Mavstar, these poles are going to meet on the same side of the Earth. And to me, that reeks of catastrophe. What say you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you look at the weather charts on Null School, I've showed a few times on my channel, you can see that they are almost replicating what we're looking at on the magnetic chart. For instance, if you go north of England, up towards the north, up to the Arctic region, you can see that there's a warmer region in between the two high-intensity regions. And where these high-intensity regions of magnetism is, over the Northern Hemisphere in Canada and Siberia, you can see that these areas are cold. It's almost like, you're just flicking a switch from the magnetic chart to the temperature chart. So, what I predicted and, said could be the case, looks like it is being the case. And I think this is, what I'm suggesting here is that when we look at the two maps, temperature and magnetism, they're very much showing us the same picture. And if that's the case, then, I think you agree with me on this. There's no coincidence that the Arctic region is where the magnetic poles are and is also where the rotational axis is. And I think we are seeing clearly, as the magnetic poles push each other apart, we're seeing them hold on to sub-zero or sub-zero temperatures in those regions.
Great. This is a great teaser to explain. In our next episode, Gene, you and I should talk about the climatic effects of the magnetic field shifting. And that way we have some time to do our homework and prepare. But before we close out tonight, I think this has been an awesome first interview. I think that we should spend at least 5 or 10 minutes explaining to the audience why they should donate to your site, why they should become a Patreon of Maverickstar Reloaded. And we can do that by explaining, first of all, what the TriMag data is, how you created the TriMag magnetic anomaly system, because you can't do it with one unit. I'm quite well aware of that. And also why we're pushing the listeners.
The TriMag,
wait, let me finish, Gene.
There is
a
few pictures of it.
Gene, let me finish.
Okay.
And then why? Because now I
Karen.
know in the last week you are really excited about taking some of this funding and getting it out to the general public where they can actually be monitoring the magnetic field with us so that we have better data moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I'll just tell you a little bit about the TriMag system. It's got 3 independent magnetometers in it. It is actually 3 independent magnetometers with their own independent breakout boards. What they do is they take an XYZ reading, gives us then a position of the magnetic North Pole. If you go onto the website, you can see I explain it. We can only track it moving left and right. So if it goes above 10 degrees on the charts, we know it's tracking easterly towards Siberia. Why should people fund it? Simply, it's for the public. do you trust these organisations to give you the information? Well, if we look at the Swarm mission, you can't get above level 2 data from them, and that's simply because the military, who are the prime contractors, they are Airbus and defence programs, and they are not so forthwilling with coming out the data. And I think it's important that people know about this rare event that's taking place on their Earth. You know, the last time this happened, a complete reversal, was 780,000 years ago. And I think it's a big event. I think because there's no recorded data of the last time this Earth went through this reversal, I think there could be some major implications with regards to what actually does take place with a pole reversal. And I think it's in the public's interest to know and be informed with regards to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we do is an honest recording of the data. And, you know, we give our views, but, you know, we share it, everything. We have no connections with government organisations. We don't have any corporate sponsorship. And it's all publicly funded, which means, you know, nobody's going to be telling us what we can show the public and what we can't. You know, what we get is what we show people, and we do it in a 100% honest fashion. I do think it's really important that people do understand what is taking place with their planet.
Well, Gene, let me break the news to you now before we end the show. It is our belief in the electric universe, thunderboltsproject.info, many other scientists are all corroborating on this, that the solar system is connected through a series of Birkeland currents. Now, what that means is that there are electric connections from the north and south pole of these dynamos, which we call planets, that connect directly to the sun. Now, if a dynamo were to reverse its polarity or even go towards zero, it actually affects the main capacitor. The main capacitor in our solar system is the sun. And the suggestion is that during magnetic reversals, geologically anyway, from my background, I have known for decades that during magnetic reversals, there are mass extinctions. There are also evolutionary leaps. So something cosmogenically occurs during these magnetic reversals that either causes a major outburst from the sun or a major influx of cosmic radiation amongst the biological entities on Earth that changes them. So these are the major implications that we're all dwelling on now. And I think it is imperative that the public get involved with a privately funded citizen science tri-mag. We need to know the magnetic data unadulterated, because we have seen time immemorial from NASA and NOAA and other agencies the word homogenization and recapitulation and readjustment. That is not what we need, because we now know that these magnetic reversals are geologically instantaneous. That means that the rate of acceleration we're seeing now, this could be done in 2 decades. By 2035, both poles could be down near Indonesia and half the population may be dead. So we need to know what's happening. We need to continue the research on what the effects may be. And I think it's imperative that the public get involved so that we have an independent source where we can confirm what we know is happening. What say you?
Yeah, and yeah, I completely agree. And the other thing is, if we can give people and the general public a heads up of something is majorly about to happen or change with the magnetic pole, then, you know, you can be rest assured that this, you know, publicly crowd-funded research facility can deliver that.
Amen. Amen to you, brother. Thank you for coming on tonight. I know it's got to be 2 a.m. wherever you are, at least. And you
Yeah,
probably live a normal slave life where you got to wake up and go to work tomorrow, just like the rest of us. So,
yeah,
are there any parting words? I just want to
that's
thank
right.
you. I can't thank you from the bottom of my heart, Gene, for coming on to the show. We're going to have many more awesome podcasts for our fans, and we're going to be following the TriMag data closely as we move forward. We have just a few decades until this major catastrophe, if it is catastrophic, there is no suggestion that it won't be, happens. And also, we now know that the poles are accelerating. We don't know, as geologists and as scientists, how fast that acceleration may get. But because we're independent, the TriMag data will tell us in a day if it's speeding up and it's about to happen, which is
Yeah,
why we need to fund this program. And I thank you for it.
yeah. You're more than welcome. And it's not. We're not just monitoring that. We actually have got a magnetosphere sensor that detects the strength of the magnetosphere dropping. Um, and this is all what happens when a magnetic reversal takes place. The magnetosphere collapses, and this couldn't come at a worse time, really, because with the grand solar minimum taking place, the heliosphere shrinks, more cosmic radiation comes into our solar system. As we've got a planet which is having a weakened magnetosphere, and it does drop pretty low during a magnetic reversal. Then we're going to be allowing probably a compiled amount of radiation into our into our atmosphere, and as a result, more cosmic radiation, more cloud seeding as a direct result, more laden jet streams, and it couldn't be coming at a worse time than what it is. I
Gene,
mean, this could be something that sends us back into a glacial period quite easily as a
yeah,
result of that.
it is my lifetime work and study has culminated at this point. I know that we're going into the next glacial period. The end of the interglacial is over, and
I know we
I
are as
was
well. Yeah.
thinking that the grand solar minimum, the super grand minimum that we're headed into, was the kickoff. But what I have seen in academia and in my field studies is that this event has gone on even when there's no glacial ice. So, what that means is there is another mechanism. And I believe the magnetic reversal, the sun, and the cosmic rays are the culprit. We now know through CERN, Svensmark's work, and the Cloud Project that cosmic rays nucleate clouds. If we have a cosmic ray cascade on the planet, that would cause the whole Earth to cloud up. You know what happens between night and day. Temperature
Yeah.
rises and falls. Where I live, 40 degrees. So if the whole
Yeah.
Earth
Well,
goes
if
cloudy, the
if the
whole
sun,
Earth cools immediately.
yeah, yeah, if the sun goes into a grand solar minimum, the heliosphere will shrink. More cosmic radiation will be bound on Earth as well. And if we have on top of that this magnetic reversal take place, which it is going to, at it could be within the next 10 years, well before that even. And if it does, the magnetosphere drops even more. That allows more radiation and cosmic rays into the atmosphere. In the worst case scenario here, this is something that mainstream organisations aren't talking about, is the fact that there was a big delay from the last regular cycle of magnetic reversals. On average, they used to take place, full reversals, every 3 to 350,000 years. There's an extra 500,000 years gone by before this one has, started to get back up and running. So, what does that mean? Is something slowing down in the core of our Earth with regard to the process of these reversals? If so, could we end up, not having a complete reversal and completely losing our magnetosphere? And if that is the case, we could be on a course to end up looking something like Mars does today, because that used to have active magnetic poles. It doesn't no longer. And we can see from the terraform on Mars that at some point there was clearly water on there and maybe an atmosphere. Well, if it lost its magnetic poles, it would have lost its magnetosphere, And in turn, that would have led to a term that NASA described as sputtering, which is a stripping off of its upper atmosphere. And once that had gone, I suppose, over a period of time, the water would have boiled off the planet and left it looking like it does today. And, what's to say that these organisations aren't sitting with the knowledge that this planet could be, at some point, facing that as a real scenario? We don't know. And that's why I think what people are going to be focused on in the future is probably what they're going to term as the major mechanical processes of planetary science. Is going to start with magnetic poles, because I think, the magnetic poles regulate the climates over the Arctic and Antarctic region. And probably, we haven't seen it yet, but may even have something to do with the rotational axis as well.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And in fact, we're uncovering the suggestion that at 0 point, when the magnetic poles are near 5% or at zero, that the rotation of the Earth stops. It slows. And a slowing of the Earth relative to our speed of spin would cause the oceans to wash up on the west coasts of continents, because the Earth would be slowing faster than we're moving. It would be catastrophic in an event. It would be like a tsunami.
Yeah. We just don't know. There seems to be a lot of information missing from our history. I heard you say yourself when you was in the interview, having a chat with the guy that you'd done a video with earlier, that we seem to have amnesia, and we really do. What you were talking about is the bulge around the equatorial region shifting, and that's a lot of ocean. And, this could be something that our ancestors talked about, especially with Atlantis maybe disappearing in a day. Maybe a similar event happened. Or, if we just look at the coastline of the UK towards Dover, we've got sedimentary rock, which was at the bottom of the sea at some point. It now stands 150 feet above sea level. And this is prehistoric zooplankton in the ocean that has sedimented, over many, many years. And this rock, these cliffs, which are very famous, you've probably seen them yourself in films and that, the White Cliffs of Dover, was at one point beneath the ocean. And you've got to ask yourself the question, what was it that pushed these cliffs out of the ocean? Why do they stand 150 feet now out of the ocean? And there's a lot of other sites around the world, like in Egypt, where, coastlines, there was cities close to coastlines that are now underwater. You've got to ask yourself the question, what geological processes took place that created those situations? And you've got to always have it in the back of your mind that these things have happened time and time and time again over thousands of years of our history, and that they are always likely to reoccur. We just live in a day and age where, we don't give a lot of time to it, because, most of our daily lives occupy most of our time. And to just look out of our little bubble sometimes is a little bit, a lot of us don't have that luxury, do we?
No, we don't, Gene. But we're trying to implore the public to find ways that they have more time for independent thought, because we need a team of independent researchers to figure this out. Time is running out. If you want to help the TriMag data, there's a number of ways you can do it. You don't need money. Just come over here to YouTube and become a new subscriber to Maverickstar Reloaded. Simply by subscribing to our channel, he can get some Google revenue. I don't even know. Do you monetize your videos, Gene?
No, I don't know. We ran into a lot of trouble with YouTube monetizing them before. What happened is they started blocking us in countries as a result of, what do they say? It was some of the content wasn't suitable for certain countries for some reason. In the end, we ended up scrapping the channel, the original channel, about 7 years ago, and we started up Maverickstar Reloaded. as a result.
Well,
So we don't monetize, we don't have adverts, and
I'm going to give you some tips after we go off the air here on how to remonetize your channel
yeah,
because I think your fans will be happy to watch a single commercial before your shows. And the new algorithms allow you to monetize, and we'll talk about that shortly. But guys, this guy makes no money off his channel. 20,000 subscribers. I've been independently donating $20 here and there over the course of several years, but that doesn't pay for anything. We got his Patreon up. I think he got it up about 2 weeks ago. He's at about 26 patrons. We can easily get this up to 100 this week. Give $1, give $2 a month. Sacrifice your coffee so that you can get independent magnetic pole data. And you're going to help us spread the independent science that Mr. Beard here is trying to do. Mavstar and the TriMag data could be super octuple mag data because we could have these magnetic meters all over the northern hemisphere giving us much clearer information, which we're looking for, right, Gene? We're looking for better data, aren't we?
yeah. Yeah, that's what we want to do. Over the next month, like I say, I'm going to be building these 6 magnetometers, which are going to measure the high intensity regions, hopefully tracking towards the magnetometers so that we'll see that they will be increasing in microteslas as the higher region areas of intensity move closer towards the magnetometers. If we can get some in America, a couple over in Russia, maybe if we're lucky in China, and definitely in mid-Australia over the east and west of Australia, we'll have a better opportunity to see what's going on
So
with not just the center of the poles.
So why don't you and I, after this video right now, we'll talk about where you want these units, and then we'll do another podcast where we shout out the locations with an email, and then we'll get the people to email us why they should have this equipment. And I bet you we can get those spots up in North China. I know people up in that region. They could probably get some up there. If not there, at least the Kamchatka. But we can definitely get them into South China. We could definitely get them in the U.S., but let's do it strategically where we can use hundreds of thousands of subscribers from different channels to find the right candidates to have this equipment at their facility. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for citizen-funded scientists. We're going to be announcing it probably at the next podcast. But what you guys can do right now is come become a patron of Maverickstar Reloaded. Please come over and subscribe to his channel and check out poleshiftnews.com at the very least. Get your feet wet, go through all the links, find out about how they built the TriMag, where they're located, find out about the magnetic field and the shift that has happened. And there are many other. Ben Davidson's site, magneticreversal.org, has a bulleted list of all the academic papers over the last 2 decades that if you want to research it, within a few hours, you can be one of the top experts on magnetic reversals. But you have to invest the time. Gene has invested the time. I invest 8 hours a day for the last 2 years, on top of my daily 8 hours a day, to bring this information to you. This is not we're not doing this. In fact, I don't know why we're doing this. I'm sure Gene has no explanation, but he is a truth seeker. It is in our genetics. We're doing this for altruistic reasons, and we certainly need your help. Gene, I want to thank you 100% from the bottom of my heart for staying up late and dealing with my whole travel nightmare. And let's do this again soon.
Yeah, it's a delight and a pleasure, Dave. And yeah, definitely we'll do it again.
Okay, we love you, Maverickstar Reloaded. Awesome podcast. Check him out, subscribe, become another patron. We love you, and that's a boom. poleshiftnews.com.